Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, March the 9th. I'll remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded for the public to be able to view. And with that, do I have a motion to adopt this evening's agenda? Moved by Councillor Glenn, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Reminded, motion carried. I'll remind the councillors that there's conflict of interest declaration forms up in the cabinet. If you have any conflicts for this evening's meeting, fill them in, stating the reason, pass them into the clerk. With that, we're going to move on to adoption of the minutes. Item 4.1, regular council meeting, February the 9th, 2026. We have a motion to accept. Moved by Councillor Glenn, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions to the motion. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 4.2, committee of the whole meeting from February 3rd, 2026. Do we have a motion to accept? So moved by Deputy Mayor Blinas, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 4.3, the special council meeting from February the 27th, 2026. Do we have a motion to accept? So moved by Councillor Bland, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 5, consent agenda. You would have all received the consent agenda items in your package. With that, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? So moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Deputy Mayor Blinas. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Now, with that, we're going to move on to item number 6, and we can slow down a little bit, and we're going to ask Tammy Constantine to come forward to do a presentation on the SRS theater upgrades.
Evening, everyone. I didn't realize it was going to be so formal this evening. I would have wore some makeup, and we talked about doing a visual presentation for you, but our focus has been making sure our visual presentation is ready for our theater opening. So those of you who were able to join us on Wednesday and Thursday night will be able to see that firsthand. So you know that we have spent time and money and energy at Salisbury Regional investing in our gym and our outdoor space, and the theater was the next logical progression for us. And so why are we doing that? We're doing that because we think it's important in our community to create a venue for arts and culture, not only for our students, but our community. And on top of that, we have invested tremendous amount of money in quality sound, light, audio, visual for Performing Arts Center. And so these are at industry music standards, not at provincial government standards. Right, so it's a German engineered technology, so it's the best. So we're very pleased about that because we want to promote arts and culture in our community at our school. And as a part of that, we have a SALT team that's been created, and they are working on being our audiovisual support team. So they're quite excited and working hard for that. So this is the scope of our project. Well, believe it or not, the theater was original except for the upgrade of the upholstery of the seats that occurred about 20 years ago. But for us, what has happened, and the plan is to remove all the incandescent bulbs, 174 of them at 4-foot ballast, to replace them with more energy efficient ones and theatrical lighting. Remove the 4 bulkheads, right? Everybody in here is a former alumni or been to the theater, so you know what I mean by the bulkheads. And secure the ventilation. Wait for it. The ventilation was never secured to the ceiling. So every time, I don't know if any of you have been through renovations before or not, but every time we peeled back a layer of the onion, it might have been a little bit spoiled. Yeah, and so the electrician said, can't leave your hand on fire, Tammy, but he says, the contractor, do you know this ventilation is not secured? No, I didn't. Anyway, and so, every time through a renovation, that's what we've been dealing with, right? So the scope of the project has taken a little bit longer and more expensive, but I can assure you that it's done to top-notch standards. So Billy O'Brien has been our main contractor, with John Arsenault being our project manager, and everything is up to spec and to snuff, and no stone unturned. So we also secured the ventilation system and reduced the amount of trunks. So those are the long arm ventilation system. So that worked very well. We've removed the old sound booth and replaced it with that functioning front of house. I said, what is that? He said, that's what you have right here, Gavin. So that's what they call it in music industry or in the cultural land, right, front of house. We've also installed the state-of-the-art equipment, TVs, confidence monitor. I'm like, what's a confidence monitor? Anyway, so that was quite exciting. So anybody up on stage apparently is supposed to have their notes up on the screen and not reading from paper like me. So that is very exciting for us. And we've installed the infrastructure also to make sure sound gym that we can stream to both events at one time, for example, like a graduation or a larger event. And then we have better streaming capabilities to the community for events that are being housed there. So the next phase, of course, would be to install the fiber optic cord, but the infrastructure is all in place, right? We painted the surfaces as well as a deep clean. So everything is black. Black is the new color. So how much has it costed so far, people? We'll wait for it, $190,000. And we have one outstanding invoice from our contractor. So right now, what we have is $129,600 on hand. So the shortfall of about $60,000 for him. But I have faith that this is going to come to fruition. I have 4 months before the end of the school year. I've listed the donors that we have so far, and I also know that we have commitments from some of our organizations like the Salisbury Lions Club. I know that the town has always supported us in the past, and I expect this to be no different. But again, I don't have said funds or said commitment from people, but I know it's forthcoming, right? We know that SSI Audio, for example, Lee Forrester, as a former alumni, he had donated a lot of money towards this project, right? So a lot of our items, I'm supposed to say the song, but he's done for us at cost or less, whatever he can do to help us through this process that he has, right? The same way as Billy O'Brien is a former alumni, he too has given us some deep discounts for this project. So the people and the contractors who have been working on this have all been connected to our school. Our electrician has been Peter Robinson, whose father is who? Mr. Robinson, former retired principal. So it's been really neat, right? Todd Killam did some of our carpentry work as well. So we tried to keep it all within the local community or connections.
Nice.
Our next steps for us, of course, is signage, our new carpet, the fiber optics that I mentioned, a new projector. The one we have is a little bit older, so we're going to move it to the cafeteria and install a new projector in the theater, new seats, of course. And we're looking at the possibility of a liquor license. So having closed events where there's no students there, but an opportunity for that for those who wish to have that sort of venue, right? And I think you've seen some of the posters. I brought some extra ones tonight for some of the upcoming talent that we have. I know nothing about music, but if you know John Arsenault, it's like, don't you know he's been nominated for 4 ECBA awards and he wrote songs for Kenny Rogers? I'm like, no, I do not know any of this. So it's really exciting to see the passion for people that do know about music and things like that coming up. So we have 2 events scheduled with 2 more coming up in April. We've got Isaac and Blewett coming up in April and Ray Legier. So that's quite exciting for our members of the community. So our tickets are all through the Eventbrite space that keeps people able to use credit cards, purchase in a timely manner. Yeah, so I do want to say, instead of also mentioned at the beginning, thank you for inviting me to talk. I also want to thank you for the new elementary school and the work you've done in that, because that's phenomenal, right? You don't know how fired up it was about the possible locations that they were looking at originally. So it was great to see the people with common sense advocating for common sense solutions. So that was really good to see. And the other hat that I wear, of course, is a food bank. And I tell people, like, we're very fortunate in our community that we have great people and great partnerships. And that's something that we do value at Salisbury Regional, because all of our community partners are top notch with us, right? And the town is no exception. And so we are very fortunate as a school, because I work with, as you know, lots of administrators from around our district and around the province. And I can tell you it's not the same everywhere, because they will tell me things. I'm like, where do you live? Like, where do you work? Right? Because I say that would never happen in Salisbury, because we have great kids, we have great parents, right? We have great staff, and we're very fortunate. So I'm a fast talker normally, and I know I'm only on having 5 minutes, Austin said, so I'm trying to get everything in 5 minutes. Any questions?
Boys, you're paying her back for all the time back.
Yeah, right.
I said, all right, I'm gonna fly through. Oh, and I should also note that Mayor Rob was the first ticket purchaser when the tickets come out to the system.
Oh.
We're gonna talk for were getting things out online and, John said, somebody want a ticket. I said, how can that be? We just sent it out. So anyway, I said, you know, got fun who it is. He said it was Mayor Ron. So
Got his eye on everything.
I'm telling you, it's fast.
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
Your $190,000, does that mean that it does not include the carpet and the seats?
That's correct. Those are next steps,
Next steps,
100%.
okay.
This is just the first phase, right? And so we do have the sneak preview Wednesday from 3:30 to 4:30, and it's for invited guests only. And we have, it's a jam-packed hour so that you can see what the theater offers, right? And that will be, once you see, seeing is believing in this case, right? Because it really has transformed our theater, as well as going to give us lots of opportunities in our community to bring in other artists and talents to the theater. Just the fact that we're partnering on a Thursday night for the cultural unveiling of the cultural policy with our coffee house was a nice mix and a way to bring people to the theater to see what we have going. So it's another great example of partnerships.
Yeah, it's exciting for the kids because to bring the community in, I encourage everybody to get out. The kids in the coffee houses that they do at the high school, the talent we have in this community is second to none. So you're gonna be blown away just by, yes, we're bringing in, to John Arsenault's point, really great acts on Friday and Saturday night and with Michelle Ryder and everyone else. But like our high school kids, like they're phenomenal. And now we're giving them equipment with our cultural policy to open that up. I guess my question, Tammy, is kind of what Jason said too, but, you know, there's a lot of future work and we'll
Yep.
talk about.
Phase two.
But, you know, I think the messaging, I think the community needs to understand is that 190K is more probably like 270 or 280,000 with work in kind and all the things that, and by that, I just really think it's a good news story. It's more than 190K. It's all of the things that, I know it's hard to put a dollar on that, but when you couple that with all the work that you guys have done on the playground, which again, when we were advocating for the elementary school and all the things we were doing, we were really showing this as a community that invests in our facilities for our kids. This is just another great example of why we invest in our youth.
No, you made a good point about that. So you probably wonder too, where I get money at Salisbury Regional. Why am I putting $40,000 in? So I can tell you exactly, because I don't want you to think I have money, because I don't. I have-
Oh, we don't.
We have our international students who come in and we get a fee or a stipend because we host our international students. And so I hoard that money away, right? And now I have nothing in that account, but that's what I do. I hoard it away, like we use it for the playground and we use it for our projects, right? But we want to invest it in money that impacts more people and more in our community, right? And so that's where the money comes from Salisbury Regional, so.
So to that point.
Yeah.
In terms of your shortfall.
Yeah.
Are you able to take out a loan for that kind of stuff as part of the school, or is that a whole different can of worms for the
Well,
government?
I wasn't expecting to be this much in a shortfall.
Yeah.
And so B, we're trying to do some fundraising and figure out what our next steps are, right? And we know we haven't heard a commitment of numbers from some of our community partners, and I know that's gonna help as well, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
but no, we would not be in the business of being able to take out a loan.
Okay. Second question is, do you guys have some anticipated revenue generation over?
Great
Like
question,
annual-
that's a great question. So right now, we see the Performing Arts Theater staying with the school, right, as being part of our, and for example, all of our artists this weekend have donated their stuff at cost, right? And so we have to sell X number of seats to break even, then every seat over that would be a profit for us. But again, we are not, we can make a little bit of profit depending on what the ticket sales are and the ticket prices.
Yeah.
But it's not our mandate to be jacking up ticket prices because we want things to be affordable and people to be able to come out.
Yeah, Friday night's $15 a ticket,
Correct.
service charges, so it's not.
No,
I want to see that place packed.
No, it's a great question and that, yes. So we do have an avenue through the theater and the acts that we bring in to
Yeah.
generate some profit there.
but it has to be said in terms of, I mean, the theater was no different than when we went to school, so that's already 20,
Don't age
Yes,
us.
please, yeah.
but there is no real, budget for.
Oh.
in itself, exactly.
There's no budget for
That's
that.
why a certain amount of revenue generation probably isn't a bad idea.
No, it's.
To target just to be able to
Yeah.
maintain and update and upgrade and
Correct.
as is reasonable.
Correct. And so right now our focus is in trying to look and bring in acts from all around
Yeah.
that'll appeal to different audiences and different genres, right? To what appeals to somebody said the other day, but what's the costume music? I'm like, what? That doesn't appeal to me, but I know there are people out there that it does.
But there's 365 nights in a year. I mean, there is, maybe you wouldn't be able to fill all of them, but if you said you filled at least one night a weekend. That's 52 weeks
Correct,
52, opportunities to be able to try to drive some of that revenue.
definitely.
Because community treat it not as a business, but at least as trying to recoup some of the costs of investment.
Yeah, I'd like to call it as well, that it's good for the community as well, because of.
Yes,
talking to
absolutely.
people-
Oh, my gosh, Jeff.
Talking to people from the southeast region, and John, again, I don't recognize, I knew Michelle Ryder, but I've talked to people from the southeast region that are coming to Salisbury, for some of these acts, so they will definitely come here, spend money in our businesses, and that would be an opportunity for other businesses to locate here over time, right?
Well, that's part of growing and attracting people to our community, right? Because we do have a great community and we do need other people to know because we do wonderful things here with what we have. I think that's the key, right?
Mhm.
We do great things with what we have.
And if anybody around the table has some context to what's needed here, the last steps,
Yes, we're all,
right? We're all in it together. So if we can piece something together to,
and we're hoping with the announcement with the cultural policy on Thursday night with some of the press we'll get out of that. Cause I'm already getting questions, what's this regional performing arts center? What's this? And then, you know, the timing, Tammy, I want to thank you for your diligence to do this because it's like the stars all aligned when, we looked at this cultural policy, then all of a sudden we get funding to build an amphitheater, then all of a sudden, but as we're working on that policy, all these things align right when we're coming to the finish line. For you to be doing that almost at the point where, well, not almost, it is at the point we're gonna be unveiling that policy. It's like it was meant to be, right?
We're better together.
Yeah, we are.
We're always better together, stronger
We're
together.
always in the same direction. Nothing else.
That's huge, right?
Well, it's a strong message for the youth, a strong message for the youth.
And the community as a whole.
well done. Yeah, great job. Well done.
So it comes to AV on Wednesday for AV presentation.
And council considering a grant request later on.
Yeah, we're,
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 6.2, DBCL, update of lot size review, and Brendan Thorne will come to the podium. Hey, Brendan.
All right,
How are you?
pretty good. So thanks for having me here tonight. It's kind of come full circle. I worked here as a student in 2002 for the town of Village Salisbury, I guess at that time. So, worked with John and Trevor back then, so it's kind of nice to be back here today, working as a full-fledged engineer, working on the water and sewer for you guys.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess jumping into it here, so we're gonna do an overview of the sewer system and or the projected population, the existing condition of the sewer, the existing capacity. Then we'll look at the projected capacity of 25. So, then we'll get into what we have left to do here for the next steps of planning the expansion of that sewer system and how we can support growth in the community with investment in the sewer system, and then we'll touch on the groundwater system, or the groundwater situation, and what we looked at there. So go ahead there. And so when we looked at the population, just looking back at the last number of years and since the data we have, count's grown at about 0.8 to 0.9%. So forecasting that out, we're looking at about 1% growth over the next, again, 20 to 50 years. That's what we've used in the city of Moncton, looking at infrastructure, and I think it holds here, something close to that. That's it.
So is that because the immigration reduction, that they're not maintaining that 5% growth they've been at?
Well, it's really more that when you look at it over the 50 to 25-year
Yeah,
timeline,
historically, yeah.
it's really hard
Absolutely.
to sustain those kind of levels. So, you know, that's probably a bit of a blip versus the long term. So
Yeah.
anywhere that they've had kind of sustained growth over, you know, over 3.5 or 4.5% has been, you know, the suburbs of Toronto and the city of Alberta, you know. So unless we find oil or something like that, we probably aren't going to sustain those kind of growth numbers. So that's just a map of the existing system, the tag there, the manholes, can't see much there, but just to give you an idea of the scale and what the system map looks like. Go ahead there, and that's the sewer sheds feeding into those sewer pipes. That's kind of how the sewer shed breaks down by access to those pipes and also by the land elevations and grading, what can slope and get into those various pipes. Go ahead there, another one. So, yeah, looking at our sewer mains for those various sewer sheds, That's the existing peak flows that flow to those pipes, and then the percent full those pipes are under peak flow conditions. So you can see we're in pretty good shape there. There's only one that's even coming close to that 50% full mark. And even at that, it's really not a concern at that point. We'll see if we go ahead here to the forecasted peak flows projected. So that's going out, that's looking at the 2070, 2075 year. And even there, we're still not full on that sewer pipe on the riverside. The other infrastructure around town, we got a few lift stations. Those are operating at about 50% capacity, which is a good spot to be. And as the town grows, we can replace those pumps with higher capacity pumps. So it's, again, kind of right where you want to be, because as that pump reaches its full life cycle and needs to be replaced, that's the time you can start to look at upgrading those to suit the current condition at that time. Treatment facility, again, we're not quite at the capacity there. We got some room to grow, so we're at about 63% capacity. And reaching that full capacity number there, 1750 cubic meters per second flow through capacity. We're not going to reach that until 2070, so still got a lot of room to grow there. However, right now we have worked with Austin and Trevor on a sludge removal project, so that does need to happen. So there is some maintenance that needs to happen with the treatment facility there to make sure we have that capacity and that we're hitting those treatment numbers with that structure.
So the fact that you're going out to 2075, do a lot of the pipes meet that lifespan?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's concrete, so, that 100-year life cycle, that's pretty common.
So, here's other infrastructure.
So, system capacity, yeah, so getting into the various sewer sheds and what the condition is at each of those locations, so jump ahead. And we got the S7 sewer shed there, so that's where we have, we're getting close to that 50% full mark. The area is generally built out there anyway with residential and with the schools down there, so there's limited availability for land through there. The other limitation for growth in that area is really the 2 or maybe 3 lift stations that we flow through by the time we get to the treatment facility. So that really limits growth in that sewer shed. Go ahead. The orange sewer sheds here, I mean, we have some room to grow. There's capacity in the sewer system. However, there's a few limitations. There's a few areas there where it's just the elevations and the topography of the land doesn't really lend itself to getting into those sewers. So anything development in those areas is really just a little bit more costly than in the available capacity areas that we'll go to next. And again, it does have the wastewater from those sewer sheds needs to flow through 2 lift stations, so there's an operational cost to that. So just a little bit more costly to grow in those areas. Go ahead. And then the Goldilocks area here is we've got land available, we got sewer capacity, the elevations and topography lends itself to gravity flow into the existing sewers. So it really sets up most for growth in those areas if we can focus growth and investment in those sewer sheds. Skip ahead there and just highlighted this area, just if there was an area to expand the serviceable boundary, it would generally be in that area. And what we have in that area is we have the McNaughton Brook that runs down through there. So an extension to a trunk sewer that runs along the brook, that's generally what we try to do. It's kind of the low area, so that's where everything's going to want to flow. And bring that out to Fredericton Road. We pick up the trunk sewer out there, continue on to the wastewater line. So if it was broke, that's probably what we should target. So the next step would really be looking at, okay, what do we need to do to invest in any infrastructure in those green sewer sheds? And then if we need to add a new trunk through that area, that's a cost benefit of that. Evaluate the expansion of the serviceable boundary and develop a concept for the system expansion. So that's what we're looking to move into next. I guess the concern, if you go ahead a slide, I think, what can be limiting sometimes with the layout of the land here is the sewer wants to run north-south through that green area. And a lot of the land kind of is severed east-west, and that kind of frustrated some development in Moncton, because you end up that you can't really progress the next development until your neighbor goes. So you can kind of be held hostage by that first developer to get through that land. So what they've done and what you may need to do in this area is take a sewer through that area so that all those properties along there have an opportunity to connect. So that's kind of what we want to look at in terms of planning concepts for future sewer growth.
So is that in terms of like an expropriation type deal, or?
But you would just have an easement with the trunk sewer, and then rather than, I guess typically you'd want your developers to just build each piece of sewer as they go. So building that trunk up through there, I mean, there's a couple ways to do it. Generally, you'd have a sewer easement that would run up across the property in terms of the property acquisition. But to pay for it, obviously the town can just make that investment and kind of help the developers. Or like the city of Moncton has developed a process for development. So anybody that connects to that sewer pays for a portion of it, when
Through connections.
connection. So
That's a good idea.
Pay for it. But yeah, so any questions? Oh, sorry, just jump back there. Just any questions on the sewer stuff before we talk about the watershed?
So if we had a developer that wanted to develop one of the yellow areas.
Yep.
What would be needed there? Another pump, another lift
It could be
station?
that needs a pump station. I mean, there's areas within the yellow that you could probably use a connection to an existing sewer, but I guess in terms of long-term planning, the green area is where we go.
Pushing through.
Yeah, that's correct. If you wanna incentivize or make an investment in the sewer infrastructure, the green area would be the most cost-effective area.
Generally, from what I'm hearing, is we're in pretty good.
Yep, that's right. With the sewer system, definitely. A lot of capacity, so as long as developers can connect to that sewer.
That's my last question I have is for any future developer adding capacity or for the town to add capacity in the future, is the current sizing of pipes adequate or for future growth, or is that something that should look at?
It's pretty good if you go back there a couple slides, to the table. So most of your main lines are 300, and that's pretty good for a trunk, for like a sewer main line. For a town of this size.
Oh,
So that's what you recommend for future expansion of fronts or main line?
We got the main trunk there at a S5 at 525, so, and then at 600 along the river. So I think you kind of look at that whole area. It would depend on how much land we're getting into that McNaughton Brook trunk. So it's really hard to say, just kind of shoot from the hip what we need for size. But yeah, what we have there now is adequate and should be adequate into the future.
So in terms of the green zones as well, in terms of like identification or apartment buildings or something to that effect, is that kind of still the same logic as well?
Yeah, I mean, we did look at growth in those areas really as, like each area growing at the same speed, so everybody growing 1% a year, so, we'll have kind of concentrated pockets that, this area grows or that area grows. But again, if you look at the numbers there in terms of the peak flow, like there's a lot of capacity wherever that population lands. So again, if you try to get them in the green zone or incentivize growth in that green zone, then we'll have lots of capacity.
Excellent. I'm good.
Water side, last one.
Right there. So I'm not a hydrologist, but
That's my line. Whoa.
I do work with them and kind of try to translate. It's frustrating.
He's feeling his material.
So I guess I'll just preface this with, we also looked at just going through a minimum lot sizes, from a planning perspective, looking at similar municipalities throughout New Brunswick and Nova Scotia to look at what they had for a minimum lot size and how that compared to Salisbury. So look for similar context as far as public sewer, private wells, and similar municipalities. And then we look at the water side of that to see how it compared, like would the groundwater situation support the same kind of lot size? So just because the towns are the same size doesn't mean they have the same kind of setting hydrogeologically. So in our first pass at that, we looked at it in, if you're gonna build a house on this land, then you should have enough land to protect your water rights and recharge the watershed that you're gonna use. And that's a really conservative way to look at it. And most of the prevailing thinking now is you really assess it on the whole watershed because it's going to recharge and everybody's going to be using water a little bit differently. And it's going to allow for a little bit more reasonable assessment of the way the watershed actually gets used there. So that, the water allocation approach is safe and conservative, but looking at it as a whole watershed basis is probably a little more rational. So when we modeled the whole watershed and looked at the recharge area of the whole watershed, you can see it there, the recharge area is the dashed line, the outside and the shaded area would be the town boundary, the serviceable boundary. And the estimated water use within that recharge area is only using about 23 to 28% of the available recharge in that area. So you want to be somewhere, well, at 50%, that's when you start to think like, okay, we need to start managing how much water we use in there. So we still, again, have quite a bit of capacity before we're into a situation where the watershed is stressed. And I think anecdotally, the information supports that. We don't have a lot of people who are calling up saying that they're running out of water, the wells are running dry. So it seems that as a watershed, the area is pretty stable. Despite, there's a lot of wells in that system, and there's generally wells uphill and downhill and everything's at the bottom. So, and like I say, it does seem like there's widespread issues with people's wells. So what we've modeled here, though, it's a fairly simple model. With the anecdotal information we have, we feel good about these results. So 23 to 28% of that recharge area is currently being used, and you have another 22 to 27% that can be used. So, by those numbers, the population here could double and still be in a pretty good space in terms of the groundwater recharge area. So like the numbers stay at the bottom there, you could have another 1,500 homes or as many as 3,700 condo or apartment style units and still feel pretty good about the water situation here.
That's super fantastic news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Even bigger now.
That's great.
What is the 22 to 28% available recharge based on? Just the water usage, or is there some way to model the actual volume of water?
Yeah, so now you're getting into the hydrology.
This might,
It just seems like an interesting piece of information as to how that's recharging.
Well, the ice melts in the mountains.
Yeah.
Down.
All in the Atlantic at this point, so.
The icebergs are melting fast today.
That's absolutely.
So, I mean, the way they set up a model, they model kind of the water use and what each of those wells are using. And then it's based on a 136 millimeters per year recharge rate. So,
The based on rain.
yeah, it's based on rain and the way the groundwater flows through the groundwater table is part of it as well. Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure where all the water comes from.
But does someone measure the groundwater table?
Well, there's been other well tests that have been done, so that's where that 136 millimeters per year comes from.
Okay.
Other reports that are done. So that is a little low in terms of recharge rate compared to other areas, like 150, I think is pretty typical. So it's just a little low on the low side, but I'd say there's seems like the situation is pretty stable.
So as long as we don't have hotter or dry weather in the future, we're fine.
Yeah, and that's what kind of makes it a hard problem to solve and say like, oh yeah, you're fine, because you know, the weather's an impact, you know, what happens somewhere else can really impact what happens in your watershed, so. Yeah, it's a hard thing to really nail down, get definitive,
No,
really tight answer.
that's why I asked the question.
And one thing too, just from a process perspective, when we had started this conversation initially, late last summer, I guess, I don't know when we started the conversation, but before we engaged CBCL, the premise of it was that the WARP had a significantly lower lot size than what the former village had. So we went through the consolidation process. We needed to basically take the conservative approach and then say, is there, like, what is the rationale and what does this look like? And in our context, you don't want to go with the lot size. In this case, it would be in the WARP. If the sewer can't hold it, or two, if there's no water to sustain it. So, this kind of exercise has been a helpful planning exercise, I would say, more than anything else. And what these steps are done first, and then, I guess they have done it, the planners at CBCL have looked at what other comparable municipalities have done. And basically the final step is to take all this information and say, okay, with this informs kind of background and data, then what does that look like for future infrastructure planning for the municipality? And what does that look like in terms of looking at some of this green land and yellow land and red land? And what does that look like as we try to basically build it out? So this is intended to kind of be more of a milestone than anything, while CBCL kind of continues their work. And the premise of it, though, comes from that consolidation process. So it doesn't change any, like, our approach to development is the same. Like, we still require water studies. Those things are still there, but this helps us give some reassurance when we process some of those applications and we hear anecdotally some of the concerns. It gives us some helpful data to help back some of our positions up, for sure. So that background is a bit important, I think, too.
To that point, I just have one last question. You're saying you're acting, the whole water spread hydraulic is more that you can't measure on a densification, more so on the whole water recharging the whole area. So does that support your reduction of lot sizes? Because it doesn't matter how condensed the well infrastructure is relative to the whole area?
Right, so the way, I guess, to manage it, goes to the well service, studies that they do. So rather than saying like, everybody gets this much land, you manage it on an ongoing basis. Each time somebody wants to build something, they do a well test and make sure the amount of water they want to take isn't going to affect anybody else, and it's gonna work. And the projects are also different, so if it's an apartment building, you know, they're gonna drop a well, it's gonna need a lot
of volume, yeah.
Versus the house. So you kind of look at each of those projects individually, and it almost, the unfortunate bit is it works on like a first come, first served basis. So, you know, you get in there, you build your apartment building, you test water, yeah, we're good. The next guy comes along, like, well, you're impacting everybody else as well.
Mhm.
So you're gonna have to reduce how much water you take, you're gonna have to reduce the number of units. So that's really the only way to manage it on a go-forward basis, other than going all the way the other way, which really isn't practical to say, okay, everybody gets this much land and has to recharge
Yeah,
their aquifer.
like double lot size almost, just to make sure there's not water.
Yeah, exactly. So that, yes, the well,
So you're saying it's more of a check, a guessing check more than anything,
it's more of what?
guessing check.
Yeah, exactly. Though we did talk often, I don't know if we'll get into it. You could, and we haven't fully kind of fleshed out this notion, but you could drop a couple monitoring wells around the city or around town. And keep an eye on what the water levels are, it's kind of like an early warning system, you know, okay, we are starting to see the water levels drop. Or, you know, we feel good about where the aquifer is, we've added, you know, this many new units and hasn't moved over the last 4 years, you know, and really have a data-driven decision-making basis.
So to that point, do you actually have to drop wells, or can you just use existing, like, say the town office, the well here, use that as a monitoring station? Or-
Yeah, you probably could, you would have to just add something to.
Yeah, whatever monitor.
Track and data.
Yeah, exactly.
So you should do that.
And you would want it to be in probably some of the areas that would see development too, and I was gonna bring it up, and didn't bring it up, the kind of those discussions, although in early stages, because if from our perspective, when we process an application that requires a water study, it comes from it has to be done by a licensed engineer, so we know that it's being done and they're looking at information, but a lot of times, if it's an abbreviated study, they just have to look at well logs, which is a picture in time when a well is drilled. So it looks at flow, it looks at quality, but it looks at those data points at the day that it was, or not drilled, but the day that it was tested.
Yeah.
And so there's no, ongoing, basically monitoring of it. And there's no objective source of truth for that. And the other caveat is when the only kind of more, I don't want to say more accurate, more detailed, when you get, instead of a 50-page report, it's a 150-page report, is when you do an actual pump test. So they test it for, depending on what it is, 24, 48, sometimes 72 hours. That's super helpful because it shows the impact on multiple wells. But if you have something that has an abbreviated study, you don't get that. So in a case where there's monitoring wells, there's sensors that, I don't know, measure what the sensors measure, but it can look at drawdown effects
Exactly.
as weather changes and.
Water table levels or something like that.
Exactly,
But the
yeah.
fact that would alleviate a lot of concerns of the public
Exactly.
or any future development.
Exactly.
That raw data or even an abbreviated version of that data would be well worth the
Exactly.
investment, just to make everyone a
Yes.
little less nervous.
And we do have wells, right? So.
Yeah, and there's some
Between the fire
that.
hall here,
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
enough municipal owned assets with
Exactly.
which to do that.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that is more than likely will come back at some point once all of these kind of stages are fleshed out.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions?
You sound like a hydrologist.
Hydrologist? There you go.
Not yet.
I feel like I'm gonna be a hydrologist by the end of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to, it's quite the mixture of things.
Yeah, we're not all over everything today.
Moving on to item 6.3, public hearing bylaw number 17-2, zoning bylaw, text amendment, seasonal vending, using shipping containers. And with that, Lori will come in. How are you?
Very good.
Coming this evening?
I will start by just saying I am doing somebody else's presentation tonight, so please bear with me if I struggle at times. So,
Take it easy on it,
yeah. So essentially, the proposed text amendment is actually involving using shipping containers as a seasonal vending machine, vending facilities within the town. And the other item that's kind of added into that is that we would be adding to the section of bylaw that already has seasonal vending to incorporate the use of these activities in the community use center. So kind of the screen on the right, which is a very small text there, is actually the current zoning bylaw. And you'll see in there, we have a section on shipping containers, which essentially prohibits them for the most part from being used within the town. And then the second part is the section on temporary and seasonal vending, vending facilities within the community. Next one, there's a whole bunch of municipal plan policies here that I'm gonna not read out. The general philosophy that what we were trying to show here is that the town of Salisbury municipal plan does not specifically address through policies, the seasonal vending facilities. That's not uncommon because of the type of activity that they are. They're not meant to be a permanent facility, so the plan doesn't go into in-depth discussion on it for sure. What I'm trying to highlight here is the notion of, in your municipal plan, you have designations for land, and those are the broad goal areas of where we want to direct certain types of uses. And then filtering down to that, we have zoning that complies with the designations. So the big one that is the one that's the hardest to kind of wrap your mind around is that we have an open space conservation designation, which would be typically the designation that you would use for environmental areas that you're trying to avoid development within. However, we also do allow a community use zone, which would be your parks type of zone in that designation. So still could be a higher land that's not vulnerable to flooding. So that's why it still falls in that designation, but it's not when you hear conservation, it's not as, dire.
No
as
development.
So, next slide, again, is just kind of going through the policies, so I've kind of highlighted in your residential designation, you can have community use zones. In your open space conservation, you can of course have conservation zones, but you also can have the community use zone. Next slide, town center, this is your designation that you would have your commercial activity mainly in the core of the community. And then your commercial designation is where you'd see your highway commercial development happening. So in your zoning bylaw specifically is where we get these now that we're potentially modifying. So section 3.10 is the section that talks about you're not allowed to use a shipping container. So this proposed text amendment would actually be incorporating a notwithstanding clause in there that would say you can use a shipping container for seasonal vending facility. So it's kind of that one-off that in those particular situations, that is an acceptable means. And then section 3.11 is your temporary construction and your seasonal vending facilities grouped into one. And this would also see some additional amendments to put some parameters in place to make sure that these seasonal facilities are fall under certain regulations. And I'll go through that on the next few slides. Before I do that though, no, you were right on the right slide. I just had missed the slide. As part of any text amendment to the bylaw, we would always seek a variety of consultation, including municipal staff or consultant with no major concerns over this one. Internally, Plan 360, planning and development staff did discuss it as well. We identified some key issues, which you'll see reflected in the text amendments. Primarily that keeping these facilities as accessory instead of a main use on a property, as well as making sure that patrons or clients are not permitted to go into the structure, that they are served from outside the structure, making sure that they are kept in a true seasonal capacity. So primarily when you talk accessory buildings, it's the biggest concern would be, you know, winter conditions and having the additional things such as snow accumulating on these structures. So you'll actually see a time imposed on these particular
Activities.
we did also, as part of any amendment that we do now, we are required to circulate it to comments to all the provincial departments. There was no comments that we were really concerned, which is not uncommon in the sense of the text amendment, especially in a corporate area of the community. Next slide. So this text amendment was primarily comes about because of the Foxton Park pilot project that happened in the 2025 season. As you guys are aware, it was done under a lease agreement with the town where this shipping container was used to operate in the Highland Park area. In order to do it under your zoning bylaw, we did impose a temporary use application, which is a type of application that's used to allow something for a period of up to 1 year. That's not permitted in the bylaw. And then from that tool, you actually, this is where you come into deciding whether you want to amend your bylaw to allow it within it, or to just say, no, it didn't work kind of scenario and it's removed. And then just kind of out of this whole idea was kind of put forward that through your guys' monitoring, there didn't seem to be a lot of concern. It seemed to be more accepted. And because of that, we are proposing the 2 text amendments before you. Next slide. So again, just kind of the primary thing in 3.11 is that we're expanding the zones that seasonal vending facilities are permitted in. So right now, the way it's worded, it just says in commercial zones. Instead of keeping commercial zones, we've actually went in and started to label out what your commercial zones are. So highway commercial zone, town center zone, and your community use zone is added. Just so that it's very clear that these are the zones that seasonal vending facilities are going to be permitted in, as well as we specifically specified that they can operate between April 1st and October October 31st. And then again, the other things that are kind of incorporated into those regulations is outside that seasonal period, they have to be removed from the location. And that the other key component there is, again, I keep driving home that it's an accessory use, so there has to be a main use already on the property. So if it's a vacant piece of property and there's no land use happening on it, then the seasonal vending facility cannot be located on it. We've also kind of incorporated in there too, that it's only for ready-made options. So the idea of you can't be brewing beer, for instance, on site, but you can sell pre-made drinks on site. And then, of course, the other clause that we've added in there is that an approval has to come from the town to make sure that the town is content with the vending, the seasonal vending facility.
Is there a specific reason? No, you still have-
When you say you can't brew, but like, let's say somebody wanted to set up a kitchen. Like, they could set up a kitchen and make food.
No.
Okay, so they
So
require
only ready-made food,
so
so
only prepared, already prepared
if somebody,
off-site, so there's no, they cannot physically be manufacturing anything on site in
you
that.
can't have a deep fryer in
Okay.
these, you could
Good to know.
bring in pre-made food and sell from the locations.
So you couldn't have like a hot dog or
No.
and
And the main rationale behind that is that these are temporary and they're accessory. So they're not meant to be having main use activities happening in them, and they're most likely under their accessory building exempt from code. So you're not
Right.
wanting to
Right.
have those kind of activities that.
Right, because if you gotta be prepared, you'd have to have a washroom facility. Right, okay, gotcha.
Certain class.
Right, there's certain-
there's all-
Regulations that fall into place when you start doing that, you know,
For public health, we're good.
right, for public health and all that. Okay, that makes sense.
Down the road, that could change as the community progresses, but at present time it's best to keep it framed in this.
Narrow.
So really, it's a serving box.
Yeah.
So where you say vending facilities are removed outside of the operating period, are you talking about like physically taking it out of the area?
What's the logic behind that?
The logic being that, the first thing that happens is if they're left there, then somebody wants to start to use them. And the idea is that because they're not built to that code perspective, they should be removed from the site. Bylaw currently kind of alludes to it, but it's just not very it's not specific enough. So it talks about them, get the wording that it uses, but it's really driven home that these are temporary. They're not main structures. They're not meant to stay there, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cause then you might as well put wheels on it, cause you gotta keep hauling it back
what
and forth.
concerns you though?
Well, it's just like the one that's there now, for example, just closed down for the winter because that would be a big cost for them to move it, right?
They're
So,
very movable though, like they go on tow trucks.
but where do they store it? I guess that's their problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just had talked that.
but then
I think.
I think from an aesthetic
Yeah.
perspective, right, like you're hauling it out and in April and October's probably not gonna be so bad, but in April, the ground is gonna be wet and soggy. Are we gonna ruin the park, hauling them in and out? And then when they're not there, it's gross and looks torn apart.
I will point out first off that it says it can only be between that. It might not come on until May. You know what I mean? Like, those are just timeframes.
Yeah,
It's, and again, kind of going to, if it's going into a park, that's municipally owned land, you can dictate how it's going on through your lease agreements.
But not, we couldn't circumvent the moving piece. It's in the zoning bylaw, is that right?
we could require them to do remediation to any ground that's torn up.
Right, yeah, is that what you mean? It'd be like that as opposed to, okay, yeah,
Right now, the bylaw, I want to be clear,
yeah,
is written that you have to remove it.
yeah.
it's already that way.
Yeah, this
So-
particular amendment that's before you is written that way.
Right.
But if you had a better base to set them on to begin with, that you
Yeah.
could accommodate.
Yeah,
loading and
rock,
unloading,
probably.
There's a good possibility it would make more sense.
It should have a good base anyway that it's
Yeah.
set on.
But if we were to go through the readings on this and it happened before May, do they have to come in?
No, because right now we're operating under a 1 year.
Year?
Yeah.
They've got-
Expired.
Yeah.
June,
I
forget that date, it's at the end of June.
So would it supersede once we do this?
No,
Once we do
What's
this,
what's gonna happen is right now, they're permitted to leave it there.
right,
Under.
but once we pass this, it doesn't supersede that.
No, but they have a temporary use for that, like
It's not grandfatherable as it's temporary.
Yeah.
yeah, the current use isn't correct, yeah, like that's only there, like if this doesn't pass and,
They can't have there.
it can't be there, yeah.
Anyways.
I think you can extend it by 1 year, right? Like it can go to the past one,
Only if a text amendment.
is in process,
is in
okay.
process. So yes, if this bylaw does not go through come June, that
That's
happens.
gotta go after that conditional use, or temp, whatever it's
I,
called.
I think the room thing is a good idea.
And that was the intent with this one too,
Yeah,
like when we
yeah.
brought it, it was because we knew it was gonna be.
You don't want
so-
ants to be
Yeah,
Exactly,
growing.
yeah.
It just have to be accommodated for the ease of
Right.
removal, I think.
right.
Next slide, uh,
So. That's a question.
No.
I was trying to regroup anyway.
I'm just trying to think of different uses we could use for these shipping containers. If we wanted to have one, if we wanted to change this so that April 1st, October 31st wasn't in there, is that possible?
For this particular amendment, no. It's not to say that you are forever written in stone on the April first if you were to pass it. Like any bylaw, you can always amend it. The only thing is I want you to be careful down the road about changing those because of the rationale behind these buildings currently are there as accessory buildings and they're there as temporary. So they're not designed to be a permanent structure on the site. So you would have to do some rethinking to the way the bylaw is formulated.
I guess what my thought was, if we wanted to have one there that was set up to be sports equipment that we wanted to hand out, loan out over the winter, have it kind of like a rental space, it would be possible.
Not under this particular one.
I was thinking of us serving hot chocolate in February.
Yeah, hot chocolate.
I'm thinking of
Like, wouldn't that be nice?
The question of hot chocolate or,
hot dog.
so you have your sea container, but like you barbecue in that front all the time. So if somebody was to bring a barbecue at a separate table next to it, but they'd be doing food and,
Not in a sea can, not.
as long as they're not, so long as they're not the sea can.
What if they did it outside?
I'm just saying they did it outside the sea can. I'm just saying, I see it all the time in other communities, like in. Just,
From this particular, the way this bylaw is currently written, you are not able to sell products in the off season or use
Yeah.
them off season. If it's outside April to October 31st, you cannot use it.
But let me ask you this.
Is this just because of the snow concerns?
Because of the building is an accessory building. So it's exempt from code
Yeah,
and it's meant to be temporary. So it's not meant to be a permanent building. If it's there year round and it's being used year round, it's not temporary.
so
Mhm.
you're
So-
saying you'd be better off building a purpose-built building for this type of activity? To do it year round?
Well, if it became a purpose-built building, it would fall under your purpose. It would be a seasonal venue.
Then you'd have to follow all the code.
Yeah.
Permanent facility that's used for seasonal
Yeah.
vending purposes.
Yeah.
So the concept behind this particular one though is specific to the shipping container.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now you cannot use shipping containers
Hmm.
in general, anywhere inside the village boundaries.
Without a conditional use, we have a conditional use.
Yeah.
Like-
Temporary.
Yeah, temporary use.
So this particular mechanism is specifically for addressing the shipping container use item. So if you built a canteen in the park, yes, you could sell year round.
Yeah.
Because that's a different,
Mhm.
that's not a.
Yeah. But I
Difficult.
can't make the shipping container my canteen that I use year round. I would have to build them.
You'd have to.
I got it.
Councilor Como, you have a question?
Yeah, it was more of a statement, I guess. We, in my profession, we use containers temporarily for storage for projects. And I can tell you that most vendors would probably want to move them because the minute you leave things get broken into and all that stuff, right? So the liability is actually a lot more expensive, you know, like $5,000 in stuff stolen versus a $600 tow truck to get it out of there. So I think it's very reasonable, in my opinion, for us to make people remove them off site. It's just liability wise, they're gonna save money in the end, probably.
And vandalism.
I'm good.
Okay, just continuing on. I think I've already covered everything on that. So this is just your draft bylaw that you have. So essentially, we just go in and write a bylaw that says that we're tacking on that notwithstanding clause to the shipping container section to allow them to be used as seasonal vending facilities. And then the second part to that being the temporary seasonal vending section, which we're just adding additional conditions to their particular use, which I've already went through. So, next slide. As with any type of text amendment or zoning bylaw amendment, you are required to seek the views of the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee before you enact it. On February 25th, the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee did recommend this text amendment as written to council. So next slide. This is just your overview of where we are in the process. So resolution started on the 9th, planning review on the 25th, and then tonight being set is the public hearing. And then following that, you're able to do, you'll have to do first and second reading and third reading. So 3 separate readings of the bylaw before it could be legalized. So under the Community Planning Act, we are required to hold an official public hearing to allow the public the opportunity to speak for or against any amendment. All the public notifications setting tonight is that public hearing date has been complied with, and to date, we have not received any written comments. And I don't believe there have been any phone calls regarding this particular amendment. So turn it back over to the mayor to operate the call for.
Is there anybody in this,
Is there anybody in the audience that wanted to speak on this item? Seeing none. So
other hearings concluded, yeah, so we're,
public hearing is concluded, but
we consider it later in section 9, section 9. Normally we do them at the subsequent council meeting, but based on timelines with our council schedule this year.
Tonight and
Yeah.
second
April 7th, yeah, or no, not April 7th, April, whatever the April special council
April
meeting
7th.
is. Yeah. Is it the 7th? Okay.
Okay. So, thank you very much, Lori, appreciate it.
Eric still have a question?
Oh, yeah, we should double check with Eric if I can't, sorry, I just forgot. Sorry, I was up there.
You have to
Sorry.
put your hand in.
Are you good?
You have to lower your hand.
Hope you're not looking at my bald spots here. And with that, we're gonna move on to item number 7, reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings, 7.1 recommendations from committee of the whole, February 23rd, 2026.
So we have a series, there's 4 recommendations. As always, we will, or from any item coming from committee of the whole or closed, we will read a brief background. And then there's a recommendation that will be on the floor for council. We have these few that are coming from the, I think that was a snowstorm, right? February 23rd?
Yes, it
the
was.
374-page snowstorm meeting, yes. So the first one is on the emergency measures plan. So background, on February 23rd, council heard a presentation on the proposed Town of Salisbury Emergency Measures Plan. This plan serves as a framework for the town's response to any event or situation that warrants the activation of the Municipal Emergency Measures Organization, or MIMO. The plan outlines roles, responsibilities, hazard assessments, and is based on the regional collaboration and templated plans being deployed by municipalities in the Southeast and Kent regions. In the coming months, the town will continue to operationalize the plan pending ratification, including a vulnerable resident registry and working with community partners who form a component of the town's emergency response plan. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor.
I'll read this. Whereas section 9B of the Emergency Measures Act requires that each municipality appoint a director of the Municipal Emergency Measures Organization, whereas the roles and responsibilities of the director of the Municipal Emergency Measures Organization MEMO are prescribed in the town of Salisbury's emergency measures plan. Whereas the appointment is made under the provisions of the Emergency Measures Act and does not constitute a local government appointment under section 72 of the Local Governance Act. Be it therefore resolved that Brad Doucette in his capacity as coordinator of protective services be appointed as the town of Salisbury's municipal emergency measures director, and that such appointment be subject to the terms and conditions of existing employment agreements. So,
Moved by Councilor Thorne, seconded by Councilor.
was that the right one? I
That's the
read.
second one. Wait, I didn't wanna stop
You
you.
should have stopped
You
me.
started, no, you started.
Yeah.
Yeah, too.
You like dropped it and then I was like, where am I? Sorry, guys.
We can still, so I'll give context to that second motion because it's related.
I assumed it was related.
It is related. So I was gonna give more of an
Jump
update.
things around on the screen at the same time too, so.
The second motion, before we have a seconder and any discussion that council may have, is that under the Emergency Measures Act, we have to make an appointment, which is, we had intended for the plan to be ratified first, that outlines the responsibilities of it. But as long as.
Would you like me to go back?
I think it's easier now to, Diane, you pick procedurally and what.
Let's
each
start
part
over.
is.
Number one.
Okay,
Sorry, guys.
so moved by Councilor Thorne, going back to number one.
I'll move. Is this the right one?
Yes.
That is required by section 9D of the Emergency Measures Act. Town council approved that town of Salisbury emergency measures plan. Is that right?
Yeah.
The town of Salisbury emergency measures plan and direct staff per the plan to operationalize it when as necessary.
So moved by Councilor Thorne, seconded by.
Every time you put my name in there, I jump in on the screen.
Questions for the motion?
Yes, sir, yes, sounds fine. Okay, perfect. Now, for the second item, now I'm jumping the gun.
I have learned that Scott can move stuff around on the screen.
Oh, wow.
All right, so.
For an election.
So with that, no questions to motion?
No.
Okay, seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried, moving on
I'm
by.
not reading that again.
Oh.
Do I have to?
I'll read the background first and then someone does
Oh,
that.
you definitely do.
Okay.
So would have been better to get the first one, with like less.
Apologies for jumping the gun myself there. So background for item number 2, which is related to the same item from Committee of the Whole in February. So in parallel with the EMO plan as required by the Emergency Measures Act, town must also appoint a MEMO director, Municipal Emergency Measures Organization director is that acronym. These responsibilities are outlined in the EMO plan and are further defined within the existing town employment contracts. This resolution is the formality of the appointment, with the EMO plan having now been officially ratified by council, as per the previous motion. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor.
Whereas section 9B of the Emergency Measures Act requires that each municipality appoint a director of the municipal emergency measures organization. Whereas the roles and responsibilities of the director of the municipal emergency measures organization memo are prescribed in the town of Salisbury's emergency measures plan. Whereas this appointment is made under the provisions of the Emergency Measures Act and does not constitute a local government appointment under section 72 of the Local Governance Act. Be it therefore resolved that Brad Doucette in his capacity as coordinator of protective services be appointed as the town of Salisbury's municipal emergency measures director, and that such appointment be subject to the terms and conditions of existing employment agreements.
Seconded.
Moved by Councilor Glenn, second by Councilor Thorne, questions for motion? See no questions to motion, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Every little change he does today is jumping the screen.
The screen is going all over the place.
If you open up the attachment.
It's stopped.
Nothing changes.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to item number 3
I
is.
need to click again.
So the next one from the same meeting is code of conduct for facilities policy. So again, background, on February 23rd, town council heard of a proposed facility code of conduct policy. This policy applies for residents, visitors, user groups, and others for using town-owned or town-managed facilities, including but not necessarily limited to buildings, fields, parks, and trails. The policy outlines the general approach to handling instances of misconduct, how the instances are reported, the town's discretion, including for situations that may require immediate attention, and a definition of the respectful standards and expectations of behaviors that are expected when using the facilities. Since the initial presentation at Committee of the Whole in February, town staff have included verbiage under the responsibility of user groups that the policy does not supersede existing procedures in place within their provincially sanctioned organizations, and that any and all reporting through independent bodies external to the town must still be adhered to if a particular event warrants it, even if it's reported and addressed by the town through this code of conduct policy. We've also reviewed governance and disciplinary processes of those provincial user groups. So while those organizations may restrict participation in their sanctioned activities or their own programming, authority over access to the municipal facilities remains with the municipality, which in other words, in the case of this policy, means that the municipality can restrict access through their policy, even if their processes do not result in such sanction, but it does not happen on a vice versa basis. And then as I think we alluded to at the last meeting, the respective policies and procedures are considered complementary between the town and what exists with provincial entities. So with that, there is a recommendation on the floor.
I move that council adopt code of conduct for municipal facilities policy.
Second. So moved by Councillor Dykstra, seconded by Deputy Mayor Olinas. Questions to the motion?
That was a short motion.
Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to the fourth item.
So fourth, from the same meeting on February 23rd, town council heard a presentation on the proposed age-friendly action plan to be submitted as part of the age-friendly designation process. The action plan follows the public consultation process and includes 7 pillars and categories with nearly 30 action items that will be operationalized by the town as part of meeting, securing, and upholding the provincial age-friendly designation status. The progress in the action plan will be reported on a regular basis as part of this process. And with that, recommendation on the floor.
Move the ca- Go ahead.
I move that council adopt the town of Salisbury's age-friendly action plan.
Seconded. Moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Glant. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. With that, we'll move on to item number 8, reports from administration. Item 8.1, SRS grant request either approved.
So this item was deferred from our last regular council meeting, and after that, council asked for some additional details with respect to whether or not the school wanted essentially a longer term commitment moving forward, or how short they were on current funding based on sponsorships that they had secured since the date of their initial request in late January or early February when it came to us. It was easier for us to bring them to have that conversation so that council could ask questions that they may have. The recommendation remains that the town or staff are recommending a contribution. The challenge is, like we discussed at that, was it our January or February regular council meeting? Yeah, on February 9th. That it would essentially exhaust for the most part the grant budget for 2026 being relatively early in the year. The other piece that we had recommended at that meeting was that we wanted to recommend the school allocate their existing multi-year agreement amount to the theater. The school's assumption is that they have some requests that are going to be pending under the current school year, but that they would be willing to allocate what they get again in September. So that's kind of their position right now. And then the rest of the updates that council heard, or the council requests that they got from the presentation earlier in the meeting. So our recommendation remains, but we can answer any questions that council may have after the recommendation is moved. Yeah.
I move that council approve a one-time grant in the amount of $10,000 to Salisbury Regional School to help with repairs and upgrade to the theater, requiring an agreement whereby the school also contributes to the 2025 and 2026 multi-year grants, $5,000 each towards the upgrades for a total contribution of $20,000.
Second.
So moved by Councillor Dykstra, seconded by Deputy Mayor Olinas.
We should probably add up to 20,000 based on that, because they may use some, they don't know.
That's what I was gonna ask, like, can we require that when she doesn't know?
We need a friendly
Yeah.
amendment on that.
If a friendly amendment can be up to a total, contribution of up to 20,000, that would be
Can
fine.
you remove that, Councillor Dykstra?
And the seconder, yeah.
Okay.
And the premise of that is like, they're not sure, but I think it's a capstone project. I
It
think
is.
Is what,
So the odds are there'll be a little bit taken from that, so.
So it was Dykstra and Olinas?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so are you okay with the friendly amendment? Okay. So with that.
Sarah has a question.
So go ahead, Sarah.
You're on that.
Is it?
Yeah, we got the request.
Try again.
Yeah, that was
Hi,
a
can
pain.
you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. I know when we brought this up before, maybe it's in there and I didn't see it, but what is going to be the impact to the students that usually get the grant money that we've provided? Like the $5,000 a year?
It's not really in there because it's the exact same memo from February 9th. We just deferred the entire agenda item and added the presentation from earlier. The impact is that's a great question because this is the first school year they've had that $5,000. So they don't know really what they will process under it. The intent is that if the municipality gets a request under that would fit under that multi-year amount, then we would defer them back to the school and say the school has this funding available. They haven't committed any of it yet, but they want to make sure they have some. And again, I think it's a capstone project if I remember correctly. But there's been no request under that so far. It would be the same thing for next year. Like they have no confirmed amount. The intent of the grant with the school is that the school gets to dictate what that goes towards with input from students. Like that's an important part of what we stress to them. Insofar as, and they have lots of student involvement in this. So, the intent is that as long as they haven't exhausted it, which they haven't, they could put it towards it, but we don't really know what it will do because they haven't gotten any other requests.
And I think-
It's the first year we've had.
And I think coming out of tonight, the more community involvement we can get towards contributing to that project will alleviate and free up funds that the students would have in the future. So I think it's gonna be cognizant for us to socialize it among the community to help.
That 5,000?
No. I mean, as Tammy said tonight, like, the ask hasn't stopped.
remaining
The ask hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
So if the community steps forward, which I know they will, again,
Yeah.
it would lessen the burden on essentially
The
that.
next stage, yeah. That's it.
Oh, just getting that close to the milestone to begin with, I mean.
Right.
It's not that hard to get across the finish line.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, at the end of the day, it's good news. I do agree with Sarah's comment. It's gonna, as we all work on this together though, I think we're all gonna step forward with the advice not ready for us.
And I think back to Councillor Colwell's question too, the same could be said, like that's one of our challenges that we raised at that February 9th meeting is the same could be said with any other grant applicant that may get a response from the town that says our grant budget for 2026 has been depleted. And our response is that here's the process and it is on a first come, first serve with the amount that's remaining.
So we can press the lineup for the next budget.
Exactly.
It's a good thing. We talked about this a couple of years ago that people are coming to the table early and.
Yeah.
It is concerning though that we chewed through in Q1.
Yeah, last year it wasn't much later, like we tend to get a lot, I think, because people don't realize that our budget is done so early, so sometimes we get late grant requests that really could have been submitted during, and people just aren't used to that process yet, so I hate to say that like the way that we'll teach them is they will get declination letters, like that's not the ideal way of socializing it, but it is a way that people will become aware of it.
But if they all come at the front end, we're just gonna still, if the budget is still only so much, we're still gonna have to make tough decisions on who gets and who doesn't.
During budget season.
During budget season, yeah.
Correct,
So
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's either a higher grant or we're gonna still have to determine priority wise who receives it. So.
And we've been trying to push repeated applicants to multi-year agreements. It makes our life a lot easier during budget and just administration of the grant policy itself. So that's the other thing that will help so that we know.
We should look at what the percentage of multi-year is.
About half.
Yeah.
Yeah, with those numbers there, that's me spitballing, but it's about half, yeah.
Just a quick question. We list all of the grants that we've given in our annual report,
Yeah.
right? Like people can go in and
Yeah.
see who's received all.
Yeah, anything over 250.
Yeah, anything under there we did.
Okay.
So there were still a few little ones that got
Yeah.
smaller.
I think it's
Or no,
good that-
we did, I think last year was the first time we did, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
nice,
they're listed.
yeah, okay, great, yeah. It's nice that people can go and still see, like,
Yeah.
we're not just saying no because it's a no, it's because we gave. it.
It's exhausted, yeah,
Yeah.
it's, to the mayor's point, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
but I do think conditioning everyone to come for Q1 or however you're gonna look at it.
Budget ideally.
But
yeah.
also trying to catalyze other investments as well.
Yeah.
Makes the most sense in general, so it stretches our dollars as far as possible.
100%.
Seeing no additional questions, all in favor?
Like,
Unminded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 9, bylaws. Item 9.1, third reading of the bylaw. Okay, do I have a
Yeah, I think,
I'd like to have a quick. break.
Yeah, we
should.
I'll move for.
So moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Glant. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
We are now in recess. Contrary minded, motion carried. It was, Deputy Mayor Loomis and Councillor Van. Moving on to item number 9, bylaws, item 9.1, third reading bylaws number 16-1 and bylaw number 17-1, rezoning of, PID 01052695 shopping carts.
I'm gonna read a bit of background on this as well, just for the record again. So on, January 26th, Town Council had a public hearing, under the provisions of the Community Planning Act for the purposes of hearing public support and objections regarding, or the proposed rezoning on Homestead Road. A summary of the input received was read into the record at the committee of the whole meeting as part of the public hearing on January 26th. On February 9th, council held first and second reading of the bylaw amendments, 16-1 and 17-1. One of these readings was held in full for each of the respective bylaws, with the other by title only. The proposed bylaw amendments, of which there are 2, if the motions should pass this evening, have been available in full on the town's website as part of the public notice issued on December 11th, 2025, which is beyond the minimum 14 days as required by the Act. The notice remains on the town's website and has also been issued on the town's social media. Additionally, the notice includes the statement that the bylaw could be inspected in person at Town Hall as per the Act. This notice and the bylaws posted in full fulfill the requirement of section 15(4) of the Local Governance Act, which means that council may choose to read the bylaws by title only. Since this section of the Act is fulfilled, should no member of council object to reading it by title only. Should council wish to proceed with third reading, the bylaws would be considered enacted by council, and while passed, the signed and sealed versions must first be registered with the province and the Land Registry Office, at which point then the proposed land use modifications would take effect. Since the meeting with first and second reading, 1 formal written objection was received. The individual was informed that it was beyond the public hearing, but as we have generally done as standard practice, we included it in the agenda package for information. We also included an email. If council recalls the public hearing, we heard a significant amount with respect to an unrelated nearby property, and did commit to getting additional information, for which there's information in council's package. And just as a summary, not to go through all of it, but it's related to an existing construction and demolition landfill site. We requested and got confirmation from the province with respect to adherence to provincial requirements. It's not regulated by the municipality. And there was a number of different points raised by the province, but the few that I'll highlight is that there was, in the public hearing, there was an instance of a fire that was mentioned. The province confirmed adherence to their license to operate, and the municipality can also confirm adherence to the fire plan that was provided by the proponent. There was an inspection, an on-site inspection done, an ad hoc one in May of 2025 by the province. And with respect to water sampling, they have 7 monitoring wells, 3 surface water wells, which are ponds, that they monitor at least 3 times a year and submit with their annual reporting to the province. So there's additional context there from the province, but that's what I'll highlight based on what we heard at the public hearing. But with that, there is 2 recommendations on the floor, 1 for bylaw 16 and 1 for bylaw 17, and we would read them separately.
I'll move the cancel the third reading of bylaw number 16-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 16, Town of Southern Municipal Plan, to change designation on a future land use map for PID 01052695 by title only.
Seconded.
So moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? Not questions, just going to make a point that when local governance did take place as part of reform, this was one of the rationales that the province of New Brunswick did bring forward was, 30% of New Brunswickers do not have representation in the ability to bring these type of things forward to a council. So I do want to call out that this was one of the upsets or one of the outcomes of this for reform to allow rural areas to have a body to come forward to on these type of things in the past, and we just have. So upon that, any additional points or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
So third reading. Bylaw number 16-1 by title only, bylaw number 16-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 16, a town of Salisbury municipal plan. That's the first one.
And second motion, or second recommendation on the floor, any questions or comments on that?
I'll move that council have third reading of bylaw number 17-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 17, town of Salisbury zoning bylaw to change zoning on PID 010-52695 by title only.
So moved by Deputy Mayor Oblina, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? See no questions from the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried.
And third reading of bylaw number 17-1, bylaw to amend the bylaw number 17, town of Salisbury zoning bylaw. So we will get those signs sealed and sent off. Restriction.
Moving on to 9.2, first and second reading, 9.3, sorry, first and second reading, of bylaw number 18, revision procedural.
So as council knows, also at that multi-hundred page notes to our meeting, committee of the whole meeting in February, we proposed a revised procedural bylaw that outlines the proceedings of council meetings, and went over a number of various changes, or mostly formatting related. The only piece that's changed since the introduction at committee of the whole is the removal of the number of meetings with respect to virtual participation limits. Other than that, the items are the same. This is first and second reading, and we would propose that they be done insofar as no members of council object by title only, and then we will post them on the website and provide public notice so that third reading can be done by title only as well. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then any questions, and then should council wish to proceed, then Diane can do first and second reading by title only.
I move that whereas council has fulfilled the requirements of section 15(4) of the Act, council have first and second reading of bylaw number 17-2.
You're on the wrong.
9.3.
Yeah.
Why didn't we do?
It's very
Why did we do that?
Say, I think we.
Skip that one.
I think we skipped
Yeah.
9.2 altogether.
Yeah, 9.2.
Didn't we do? No, we
We're
did.
having a winning night.
Yeah, what?
We just.
17.2 is the.
I started to do
I
that.
know we did both. Oh, that's my bad then.
I started to do it, you told me to skip.
Yeah, sorry, that's my bad. Sorry, we skipped it entirely. That's me.
What is that? Tonight.
It's a weird night.
Going back to 17
For the record, I did start to read.
yeah, you did.
Well, you already talked about the bylaw 18, so
Yes.
if they want to make a motion.
I'll move that council have first and second reading of town of Salisbury bylaw number 18, a bylaw respecting the proceedings of Salisbury Municipal Council and committee meetings by title only.
I'll second it.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Oblina, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion?
So if we had objection, you could have to read the whole bylaw?
Yep. You can do the sections. You can do the sections.
I don't have any objections.
Yeah.
That's.
You could at least read the headers. The headers.
He cares for you.
The headers.
That's really nice.
But this one, there's also a lot of headers, so that
Yeah.
even that wouldn't be a lot of fun.
I'm good by title only.
A lot of peanut power wielding at the moment.
Or is moved by Councillor Glenn?
And
No.
Bannister.
Bannister.
Hopefully.
Okay. Questions to the motion? Being no questions, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
So,
We're back to item 9.
That's what we gotta do.
first, second reading.
We're having a time to read.
First reading.
Thanks, Stephanie.
I've got a full.
I can't hear everyone here. Okay, bylaw number 18, a bylaw respecting the proceedings of the Salisbury Municipal Council and committee meetings. First reading. Second reading, bylaw number 18, a bylaw to the proceedings of Salisbury Municipal and committee meetings. That would be the second reading by title only. Again, pending changes up until third reading.
And they're actually already posted on the website, but we'll issue public notices, in addition to our adherence with section 15(4).
Okay, moving on, we're moving back to 9.2, first and second reading bylaws number 17-2, zoning bylaw text amendments to November.
Why don't you go ahead?
So are we doing a preamble still too, or we're gonna?
You didn't do one for that one.
So this is I did my preamble together, I thought we passed both motions, I'm sorry. But 16-1 and 17-2 are related to the same, proposed rezoning. One requires amendment to the municipal plan, future land use map, and the other, is one zoning future land use map and one's municipal plan. So the second one is what we did not pass.
Are you sure?
No,
Two is
no.
shipping containers.
With the shipping.
Oh,
We already had.
so we did pass both motions. We did pass both motions for the first one, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 17-2, my apologies, is related to the public hearing that we heard this evening for the text amendment to the zoning bylaw only, that will permit the use of shipping containers, for seasonal purposes only, based on the pilot project that the council approved, in the summer of 2025, based on the parameters that Lori Bickford from Plan 360 shared with us this evening. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor. Should council have any questions? You might want to spare yourself.
I'm gonna do it, just because I want to have a crack at it, but I think this is a time change, that was the problem, but. I move that whereas council has fulfilled the requirements of section 15.4 of the Act, council have first and second reading of bylaw number 17-2, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 17, Town of Salisbury zoning bylaw by title only.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councillor Dykstra, second by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? Questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
All right, first reading. By title only. Bylaw number 17-2, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 17, a town of zoning bylaw. Second reading, bylaw number 17-2, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 17, town of Salisbury zoning bylaw. Again, changes can be made up until third. Done.
Thank you. All right, moving on to number 9.4, I believe.
Yes.
First and second reading of bylaw number 19, revision of the code of conduct for council.
So as discussed at that same committee, the whole meeting, council will recall, we proposed a revised code of conduct bylaw, which the premise of this is based on a memo that was circulated by the local governance commission in late fall of 2025. Since the draft was presented to council at committee of the whole, we got Lauren, the town's lawyer, input the day after our council package was circulated. So this includes her feedback, which essentially just integrates some components that were in that are in the City of Moncton's code of conduct bylaw that were not in ours. As a reminder, it's required by provincial legislation that we have this bylaw in place, and one has been in place. It's just that it was passed by the provincial facilitator, and so it's cleaner, very similar to the procedural bylaw for us to repeal the existing one, introduce a new one that's approved all 3 times by council, instead of having the logistics of amending a bylaw that was technically not passed by council in fall. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then any questions, and then should there be none, over to Diane for first and second reading.
Move that council have first and second reading of bylaw number 19, a code of conduct for the council of Salisbury by title only.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Bland, second by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
So first reading of bylaw number 19, a code of conduct bylaw for the council of Salisbury. Second reading by title only as well, bylaw number 19, a code of conduct bylaw for the council of Salisbury. And again, changes can be made up until third.
Yep. Item 9.5, first and second reading bylaw number 20, seasonal / temporary venue.
So this is the municipal bylaw that follows item number 9.2, which is the text amendment under the zoning bylaw, which essentially regulates the permitting process. So if in the event that someone requests a seasonal vending bylaw under the zoning bylaw, or what is permitted under the zoning bylaw, they need to follow those steps, and provide those requirements, insurance, site plan, so on and so forth. There are no changes to the proposed bylaw, since introduced at committee of the whole. That information or that bylaw already had information from the town solicitor at that point. So this essentially replaces the, in this past summer, we had an agreement, with a proponent on a pilot basis, and this bylaw will introduce a permit process in lieu of that. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then any questions that council may have. And then first, second reading.
I move to cancel the first and second reading of bylaw number 20, a bylaw of temporary vending by title only.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Deputy Mayor Blinas. Questions to the motion? See no questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Aye.
Motion carried.
So first reading by title only of bylaw number 20, a bylaw into seasonal temporary vending. Temporary vending, second reading by title only, and again, change it to being used until third reading.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 10, closed session. We'll have to ask the people in the gallery to, unfortunately, we're gonna have to leave, finish the council chambers. And motion to. Seconded by Council Bannister, seconded by Council Boyer.
I know people.
All in favor? Session, please. All right, I'm not sure who moved. Council Extra and Councilor Bannister, I believe. Sure.
Go for it.
All in favor? Aye. We're now back into the regular session. Moving on to item 10, moving on to item number 11, mayor and councillor statements. Just really quickly, getting back to, principal vice comment tonight on the regional theater, it's a performing arts center. I just encourage everybody to tell their friends about all the performances that are coming up, because obviously having bums in the seats is going to be really important for them to fundraise. So there's an event this Friday night and this Saturday night that hopefully they can get as many people out to as possible. And then next weekend there's a wellness expo at the high school. Town staff is doing.
I don't recommend the statements, rock and roll with that.
Anything, the council?
Just to thank all the donors for the theater project.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful to see.
So with that, we'll move on to item 12.1, Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee Terms of Reference.
This is a formality, to go along with the cultural policy, which will be formed, this crew is part of the cultural policy implementation, but will form the implementation plan to act on the cultural policy, and like our other working groups and committees, has terms of reference approved by council. With that recommendation and then discussion.
I move the council approve the terms of reference for the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. With that, moving on to item 13, the adjournment. Do I have a motion? So moved by Councillor Thorne. You're adjourned.